It was a quiet afternoon at Arlington, the kind of silence that carries respect, the kind that only exists around those who gave everything for their country. The air was heavy, still, and sacred. People spoke in whispers, footsteps softened as they passed the tomb of the unknown soldier. But that calm was broken by the deep, guttural roar of engines. 5 Harley-Davidsons rolled up the lane like thunder intruding on prayer. The bikers wore leather jackets with skull emblems, their laughter sharp and mocking. Tourists turned their heads, a few raised their phones to record, unsure if what they were seeing was real. The tomb guard, dressed in full ceremonial uniform, his steps measured and eyes locked forward, didn't flinch. He had been trained to ignore distraction, to uphold the dignity of those who couldn't speak for themselves. But one of the bikers smirked, stepped forward, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Hey soldier boy, bet you can't do nothing without your fancy rifle." The crowd gasped, some whispered for them to stop, but the biker just laughed harder, his arrogance growing with each passing second. The tomb guard paused mid-step, his gloved hands tightening around the ceremonial rifle. For a heartbeat, the entire plaza froze, no birds, no footsteps, no sound except the echo of that single insult. Slowly, he turned his head, his movements razor-sharp and deliberate, and locked eyes with the biker. The shift was subtle but electric, the temperature seemed to drop. The biker, emboldened by his friend's jeers, took another step closer, spitting near the edge of the marble platform. "What's the big deal, man? It's just a statue," he sneered. The guard's jaw clenched, but he spoke in a voice that carried authority, command, and unshakable discipline. "It is requested," he said evenly, "that you remain silent and respectful." But instead of backing off, the 5 bikers surrounded the area, revving their engines to drown out his words. The sound bounced off the marble, filling the space with chaos. Tourists began to back away, frightened. Yet the guard didn't move. His face remained stone, his posture perfect. Then, the lead biker, a muscular man covered in tattoos, grabbed the edge of the tomb's railing and kicked it slightly as if to test how far he could go. That was the moment the guard's patience ended. He shifted his stance, his boots clicking sharply against the ground, a sound like the cracking of thunder before a storm. Without a single wasted motion, the guard lowered his rifle from ceremonial position to defense-ready. The crowd fell silent. Every soldier stationed at Arlington is trained to defend the tomb with their life, not just their words. And now, that training was about to be tested. "Step away," the guard warned, his tone calm but edged with danger. The bikers laughed again, not realizing that the man before them wasn't some mall cop or museum attendant, he was an elite. When the first biker reached forward to shove him, it was over before anyone even saw what happened. The guard pivoted, rifle spinning in a controlled arc, striking the biker's arm with surgical precision. The man dropped instantly, howling in pain. Before his friends could react, the guard's movement continued, a disciplined flow of strength and control honed from years of military service. The second biker charged, but one swift sweep of the guard's boot took him down on his back. The third swung a helmet like a weapon, but the guard sidestepped and used his rifle's butt to push him down with a force that left the crowd stunned. 3 down, all in less than 30 seconds. The fourth hesitated, staring at the soldier like he was seeing something not entirely human. The fifth muttered a curse and stepped back. The guard didn't chase them. He stood tall, silent, the sunlight glinting off his medals. 60 seconds hadn't even passed. When the military police arrived moments later, the scene was almost unreal. The bikers who had come in loud and defiant were now on their knees, clutching bruised arms and broken pride. The crowd that had once been scared was now clapping softly, almost reverently, not for the violence, but for the discipline, for the dignity that man represented. The guard, still at attention, saluted the arriving officers and then turned back to his post as if nothing had happened. No words of triumph, no look of satisfaction. Just duty, cold, clean, and sacred. One of the officers tried to speak to him, but the guard only said, "Permission to resume my watch, sir." The officer nodded, understanding what few civilians ever could. This wasn't about ego. This was about respect. The bikers were taken away, shouting excuses and threats that no one cared to hear. Videos of the incident started spreading online before the police cars even left the cemetery. And by sunset, the world had already begun to take sides, some calling the guard a hero, others calling him too extreme. But those who had stood there in person knew the truth. That man had defended something greater than any of them could measure. Later that evening, as the final rays of sun dipped behind the marble rows of heroes, the tomb guard continued his silent vigil. His face betrayed no emotion, but deep beneath that stoic expression lay the weight of centuries, of every soldier whose name was lost, every sacrifice made so that others could live in freedom. Somewhere across the country, people were watching clips of the event, arguing, praising, or criticizing. But none of that reached him. His mission remained unbroken. One of the older veterans who had been in the crowd earlier returned quietly, his hat in his hand. He stood behind the roped barrier and whispered, "Thank you, son." The guard didn't respond, but his next step, measured, sharp, and perfect, said everything. 60 seconds had turned 5 men's arrogance into silence, and in that silence, the world remembered what honor really meant. The tomb guard wasn't just a man, he was a symbol, a living reminder that some lines are never to be crossed. And as the night fell, with the echo of his boots marking time against eternity, it became clear, those 60 seconds would be remembered far longer than the bikers ever imagined.